Hello, my name's Kevin. This is Dirty 20 Gaming, and this week I'm going to talk about what to do when your party doesn't gel. It's happened to most of us, I'm sure. This is a really complicated issue though, because there's different things that can go wrong, and there's different things that you can do to kind of fix them. The first difference is it the characters who aren't gelling, or is it the players? Because one of those is bad, and one of those is really bad. If it's your characters that aren't gelling, you'll notice because at the start of a battle or at the start of a scene, and you say, "What are you going to do?" They don't talk to each other. The players don't. The characters each just in character say, "I do this, I do that, I do this, I do that." There's no planning, there's no follow through, there's no teamwork, and that's bad. But if it's your players that haven't gelled, and you can tell this because you look around the table and half of them are on their phone or eating chips or talking about the football game they saw the other night, but not all in the group, they're split up into little groups, then you have a serious issue. To fix it, if your characters aren't bonding, there's a couple things you can do as a player, and there's a couple more things you can do if you're the DM. As a player, you can actively pick another character. Have your character actively choose another character and work to build a bond with them. Find something that they have in common, something that they both like to do, a common part of a backstory. Pull out their lore, pull out their backstory, make an effort to become their character's friend with your character. You can, in some sense, you can avoid this issue altogether if you tie the characters' backstories together. Some systems, like one I just recently discovered, Fate, actually builds this into character creation. Part of the process is after you write your backstories, you hand them around and put yourself in other people's backstories, so you already start with a history. You can do that, or you can play as friends, have two of the characters known each other for years, allies, they both used to be buddies in the army together, or even family members. With anybody with a mutual history, this changes the dynamic right at the beginning of the game and brings that party together. It's also really underutilized, and it can add a real twist to the party. If two people come in together and there's other people in the party, those three are likely to bond amongst themselves, and then it's up to the players and the characters whether the three in that two group bond together or whether they kind of stay separate. All legitimate, but it's what you don't want is five individuals sitting around a table playing five characters who are also individuals. That's not really how it's supposed to work. Another thing you can do as a player is I stole this phrase from auto racing. It's called co-competition. In racing, what it means is if one and two people get away at the start of the race and they're a bit clear of everybody else, sometimes instead of racing each other, they'll work together. They don't try and make the pass. They don't try and make it difficult for each other. They both stay on the prime racing line and work together for 80-90% of the race just to open up a gap to the rest of the field. And then with 5 or 10 laps to go, there's kind of a mutual nod, and off they go to race for the win. Co-competition, you're friends until it's time to be a hero. That can really work well in your games. Think Legolas and Gimli keeping track at the battle. They're friends, but they're also competing. The other side of the screen, as the game master, if you want to try and avoid this, one of the things you can do is start your adventure with a bang. In media res is the phrase that means in the middle of it. Tie your party together by making them the sole survivors of a horrible event, or the only ones that stood and fought when something horrible happened in a village. Start the game with a bonding experience. You can't do it every time because it gets really predictable, but it is one option. It's the old, they're all sitting in the tavern, the bar wall gets kicked in, the giant storms into the room, everybody else runs, the party stays and fights. Therefore, forming a team, they get offered a job by the local sheriff, and off goes the adventure. You can also use something like the fate system that I mentioned earlier to guarantee previous character interactions. So that way you know that at the very least this character saw that character do something or heard of that character doing something before this adventure, this campaign actually started. So they're already at least on each other's radars. One thing I like to do is in my session zeros, which I always do, is to do mini scenes. It also helps because that's usually where you create your character. So you might have had some ideas for your character before this, but now it's on paper. The backstory's written. You've done these interactions if you're going to use them, like the fate system, or like building into each other's backstories, or being allies, friends, or family. You've done all that. Now bring these characters to life by talking to each other. Because they're tied together already, you can do this. If one of the characters witnessed another character commit a crime, have them do a small scene during session zero, or they walk up to the other one in a bar later and say, I saw what you did, and let them work it out. Let them role play it. Let them tie it together before the adventure even starts. Another thing you can do is, especially if you're playing online, but this works in real life too, start a Discord channel or have some other way to get messages to each other, assuming that everybody is okay with it. You never put anybody on a mailing list that doesn't want to be there. But then lead by example and use that channel or that system to get information across to your players, to ask questions. In other words, actively look for responses, and discuss what happened last week and what they think might happen next week. You can even use it to just share RP memes and jokes from time to time. Anything to give you that chance to be connected for the rest of the week and not just for those sort of 3 hours that you're at the table every week. And then the big one, the real number one thing you can do to make sure that your party is bonded, hopefully as players and as characters. And we'll get more back to that players thing in a minute. I'm saving that for the end. The biggest thing you can probably do as a DM is make sure that everyone is having fun and that they're getting what they expected out of this game. If they're not getting what they expected, they're probably not buying in. If they're not buying in, they're not sharing. If they're not sharing, they're not bonding, and that's what we're trying to get them to do. So make sure that they're having fun and that they're getting what they expected out of this game. That should get covered in session zero, but sometimes you have to go back and revisit it. I know we said that, but that's not how I interpreted it. Something along those lines. Figure it out. Either way, whether you're a player or a DM, either way, the one thing you need to do when you realize that this is happening is acknowledge the situation. Bring it out into the open. Have a conversation about it. You're playing with adults. You should be able to have an adult conversation about this. Having said that, I personally always offer a private way for players to get a hold of me, whether it's a PM or an email or something, just for those people that are not comfortable in speaking in front of the group. So I always also, what I do is bring it out in the open, talk about it, and then make the decision next week so that these people that weren't comfortable get a chance to come and tell you in private. Now, this is the uncomfortable bit. This is the bit when it's players who aren't gelling, not characters. Again, you have to acknowledge it. Probably the DM or the GM should do this, but somebody has to find out if it's personal. If it's between that person and that person. Whatever that may be, they don't get along, they don't share, whatever that is. That's not get into that. But you have to find out if it's personal. And if it is, you need to preferably fix it. Bring the two people together. Again, we're playing with adults. Get these two people together. If it's two people or if it's one person that's a problem, set that person aside and have a word with them as an adult and explain to them what the problem is and hopefully fix that problem. If you can't, sometimes the only answer is to remove a player from the game. It's not nice, it's not pleasant, but it's the only fair thing to do if one person is the issue and everybody else is having fun. Anyway, speaking of having fun, I'm going to come back to this. Find out if everyone is having fun and if they're getting what they expected and hoped for out of this game. If they're not, find out how it's different than what they expected and see if you can change it to better give them what it is that they want. Because the best way to get player buy-in, character buy-in, DM buy-in, everybody to buy into the game is to make sure that everybody's having fun and everybody's playing the kind of game they want to be playing. So hopefully that helps. This is a very difficult topic and it's really uncomfortable when it happens in game. And so I'll finish with just the very simple advice again. Acknowledge the situation, bring it out into the open, and talk about it like adults. Fix the problem, get back to having fun. With that, as always, thank you for watching. And until next time, game creatively. Bye.